So the first one is Philippa. She founded a startup called Wummelkiste that we can maybe talk about a bit later on, and right now is COO of a startup called Home Eat Home. And Barbara is also with me. She's CEO and founder of Risparmio Super, which means super saver, and that is an app that compares prices of items in supermarkets with each other to help you save money. And last but not least, Dorian is with us. He is CEO and founder of a company called Apparently Different, and he wants to bring the advantages of online shopping to the offline world. And maybe you guys can start out and explain a bit to the audience what you think is the most important things they should know about your startups. And let's say about 2 minutes each.
2 minutes each, that's tough. So what we do is a fully automated POS system for convenient food. We basically have fridges, but fridges with weight sensors that work without any human interaction from the seller side. So the buyer, the consumer, just goes and pick up the food. The important thing from our perspective, it's fully on demand. So you don't have to pre-order. You don't have to decide today what you want to eat tomorrow or the day after that. But instead, we really try to bring convenient food to places where people pass by on their way home anyways, such as gyms, office buildings, supermarkets, and convenience stores.
That was fast. I think you're financed by Coca-Cola, right?
Yes, we are.
And the development of the fridges took quite some time, right?
It did.
Why was that?
It's not, I mean, obviously, if you want to do something with hardware, it always, well, there is, I would say, a rule of thumb that it takes a little longer. And since the fully automated system means that we don't have human interactions at the point of sale, we needed to make sure that it really works. And that took quite a while. But right now it's working actually pretty well. We do have a fridge somewhere over there, so if you want to go and check it out, I can explain it right at the spot later on.
Cool, thanks. Barbara?
So good morning, everybody. Risparmio Super, which means like super saver, started like 4 years ago as a comparison website for grocery stores. So basically you get localized in your area, you build your shopping basket, you find the items you like, and you can see that the same apple has like 5, 6, 7 different prices in stores around you, which means that you can actually save money on your total basket if you can actually compare from home, from your phone, where on the subway, wherever you are, those prices, and find the cheapest store around you. So at that time, as a website was quite, new. Then it became an app, and new for Italy, because this is based in Italy, because we basically had no online shops for grocery, and we still have a very few. So using our assets and knowledge and all the experience we did in these years, then we helped grocery stores bring e-commerce to the Italian to the territory. So we're now managing like all Carrefour, like big companies, grocery stores, and comparing all the online stores. So we started from the offline world, so comparing offline stores and prices, and now we are comparing online stores and prices. So I can say that we helped this transition in Italy from the offline grocery stores to the online grocery stores.
Good morning, everyone. Apparently Different is a B2B technology provider that brings the best of online shopping into fashion stores. And what this means is basically that we use technology and a new fitting room design to change the customer experience in a fashion store. So if you enter a store that is using the Apparently Different concept, you are inspired by fashion, you can touch and feel everything, and the customer experience changes once you enter a fitting room. So we have larger fitting rooms, they have a large touchpad, and once you are in a fitting room, you never have to leave it again. You can actually continue shopping naked. So you can use the touchpad and select all the items that the store can basically offer. You can order them into the room, but they are not handed over to you via a curtain, but instead via a drawer and hatch system. So everything that you ordered will arrive at the most at 30 seconds later after you ordered it. You open a hatch, you take it out, you can try it on. Everything you don't like, you can put back. Everything you like, you just take to the cashier. So this is the customer experience in the store. but we are talking about combining online and offline, and this touchpad also, of course, enables you to connect online and offline much better than you can currently do it. For example, if you are in a fitting room and one item is not available in your size, you can simply order it from the online shop. Or you can use click and collect, but instead of collecting the items in a store at the cashier, you can actually collect them directly in a fitting room, and if something doesn't fit, you can actually continue shopping. So this is what we do.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So, Philippa, in an interview with us actually earlier this year, you said to my colleague that you had an edge over your competition in terms of logistics because there are just a couple of fridges that you have to deliver your goods to in Berlin. So I ask myself, how scalable is that business?
Obviously, it's totally fair to say it's not as scalable as a pure online platform. The big advantage is that when it comes to food shopping, online shopping, one of the big cost drivers really is not only the shipping, but also the packaging. Since you have to make sure that stuff is cooled on the way from the production site to the end customer. What we do instead is we have up to 40 different meals that we actually put into one fridge, all with one drive. So in the end, we really sneak out those logistics costs. Luckily enough, there's a lot of startups that recently entered into these logistics for food. So it is scalable. Since what we really have to do is we need to make sure that we have the B2B partners to put up the fridges in the most convenient places for people to pass by on their way home. So that, again, is on and offline. They order or they reserve their favorite meal online via an app and then just go and pick it up. Other way around, they can also just go there and see what's left, but then they pay online. And since the system, the ecosystem of food and food delivery is growing every day, we also have the advantage of relying on two partners that help us to make it totally scalable.
And who would you say is your target group? Because like my mom is not.
No, not true. We actually have a lot of pensioners that use this, and the reason is they say food, usually if they go to the supermarket, it's too heavy to carry at home.
Okay.
Plus, the other advantage is they cook every day and they get bored of the recipes they know. So I was surprised as well.
All right.
We have the only problem is they don't have a smartphone to pick up the food, so they call us to open the fridge. That works, but it's not the way we actually meant it to be. Our core target group really is, it is an urban scenario, so we won't go into really small cities. Our core target group is couples or singles in their, let's say, 25 to 40s, who like to eat healthy food, however, who don't really have time to care about how to do that. So it really is that both people of the couple are working and they come home late and they don't want to go to the restaurant every day. They also don't want to eat pizza every day, but somehow in the middle. It's, we do attract foodies as well, since we very much obviously focus on health food and regional food and all of that. But we see a much larger target group that actually uses us.
Okay. So, Dorian, when I was looking into your startup, what I was asking myself, if you have, let's say, 12 changing rooms in a shop, and everyone's busy ordering new sizes, and I think you even have the possibility to order a drink, how many employees do you even need to serve all of these people? It sounds to me like something that is more possible on the high-end side.
So a couple of points to that. So first, once you have more than 15 changing rooms, it suddenly makes sense to at least semi-automate some of the processes in the back. And our company owns 2 patents, basically, that secures us to semi-automate this process. If you have a smaller store, like for example, what you said, it's 12 changing rooms. And if people shop in the speed as we experience it here in our test store in Berlin, you would need 3 employees basically serving those rooms. But what is good about this is simply that the more people try on, the more they are also going to buy. And everything that those employees actually have to do, like deliver fashion, but then also fold it and put it back into a shelf, is something they are already doing today, just at a slower pace, because people are not trying on that many items. Like in our stores, people sometimes tried on 20 items from this fitting room because they could just stay in there and continue shopping. And this you would usually not do. So having employees that are busy is basically a good thing.
I think you had a pop-up store in Berlin throughout October, right?
Yes.
So maybe you can share some of the insights. Like, do you have numbers on how the shopping increased, or how the amount of money got higher the longer the people stayed in there, or?
Yeah. So the two levers of our model, you win the game with the sales side. So we increase conversion rate and basket sizes. So we had 70% conversion rate in our fitting room. So once someone entered the room, 7 out of 10 people would actually end up buying something. And the average basket case was 210 euros, which is extremely high. And what we just saw is that people try on more items and then they also buy more. As I mentioned, we had couples in particular. So we had a large room. It was more than 10 square meters. Couples could, for example, enter together, and they basically got really into a shopping mood and tried on 20 items or so. They usually spend between 15 and 20 minutes in this room. This is, of course, a bottleneck, so you need to have some more rooms than you currently have in a normal fashion store because people just spend more time in there.
Could you imagine to create profiles of the customers where you save what they like so they can get certain suggestions when they return? Though that
Yes.
might be a privacy concern on the other hand, especially in Germany.
It's of course the idea. So our first customer is actually an online retailer that is moving offline, and that also features our concept. It will open a store in January. And what they, of course, also want to be able to is that you actually, as a customer, log into the changing room software with your personal login. And that is great because currently, if you have, for example, a customer card at the Peek & Cloppenburg recognizes who you are once you pay at the cashier. So basically, after the entire shopping experience is over. In our store, if you enter your login on the touchpad, you know right away who your customer is, and you can, of course, target what you show to them. I mean, the least you can do is decide, is it a man or woman, and then you can, of course, go much deeper.
So Barbara, your startup is the oldest one on stage since you founded it in 2010, right?
Yep.
And maybe you can share some of your experiences that you made throughout this 5 years in terms of how online-offline connection changed, and take your startup as an example for that.
Well, as I was saying, we started in an era where, like 4 or 5 years ago, where like in Italy, at least in my country, but also in Germany, I think, the biggest way to promote products for retailers was the leaflet. Basically, that piece of paper you get in your mailbox, which is not really cost effective. You don't know you're giving this to. It's the same message to everybody. And what we did, we tried to bring like technology and a more effective way to target people according to their taste. Because every time we have a person that is surfing our website, we know what he's looking at, we know what he clicked to, what he put in the basket. These are basic things for us, but they were not for them, like basic ideas or principle of online shopping that they totally not knew or understood because they were talking to general audience. So we tried to build like profiles of their users, clusters, and say, okay, this person previously looked at this, and this, and they were looking for pet food and then divers. So maybe they have a cat and they have kids. Or if they're buying chicken, check what other stuff they're buying. And we found out that many women had a cat and they were giving a piece of that chicken to their cat. So because we could link these two pieces of information. So in the next email you're sending to these people, also send something related to cats probably because they have this type of profile. So we brought some type of profiling to their customer online experience, and we tried to convince them that they could go online without creating negative effects on their profits on their actual stores, because they were very worried that pushing all this commerce online would actually create problems to their physical stores. Because they still have lots of costs over there, lots of people working for them. So they thought, oh, okay, so everybody's now going to buy online, and I'm going to only have costs, and I have to cut jobs and everything. So we tried to introduce a click and collect type of service, saying, okay, you order online while you're in the subway or you're home, you're night doing something else, but then you go to the store and pick that order up, so that people that are there are gonna be busy, which is good. You're not gonna fire anybody. You're still gonna use your assets in that point of sale, so you do not need to sell or change your model, but you're adding another touch point to your points of sale. So we start softly. I think we need to introduce very softly these type of changes, and we're still in this process because we are like a 60 million country with only like 3 retailers for grocery online, which is really disappointing and surprising, I would say. And there is nobody in the south of Italy. It's like 30 million people have no service at all. So we're introducing like little by little this concept. They're now starting with delivery. There are lots of people allowing the delivery area and market, which is very expensive. So also for them, it's a big investment with little returns compared to the amount of revenues they're making on the offline world. So it's really, really difficult to convince them that there is a lot of money on the online while they're not making money online but still offline. So this is where the challenge is, at least.
So all 3 of you have decided to found a company that has some kind of offline component to it. How do you track these components? Because it makes it much harder than being only online.
In my opinion, it actually makes it, from a marketing perspective, even easier. Because what we have is, we have these fridges that you see and you somehow wonder what it is because they don't look like normal fridges. And that is the first interaction that we see with customers very often. So we do have an offline presence that we can use for marketing to actually then explain our online product and retarget those customers. That's something that previously in the companies I didn't have. And I do see a big advantage, although obviously from a process perspective, it makes things a little tougher since you have to take care of something physically out there in the market that somehow needs your attention, that needs to be monitored, and that you need to care of. But I think the advantages definitely are bigger than the disadvantages, at least for us.
Well, I actually started the company because I had a problem myself. I mean, this is something that many entrepreneurs have as a problem. So I was a student in the States, and I'm like, okay, I'm in a new place. How do I know which is the cheapest place to go for like grocery? And I had no money, so like students. So at one point, say, okay, this is an offline problem that I could solve with the online. I would say instruments or features or services. So the beauty of this online and offline mixing is that you're helping the real world. This is not just happening on an app or virtually. This is something that is affecting your day-by-day life. You're saving time. Sometimes you're saving money. You're helping people in managing their monthly budget. And it's not only a B2C product or service, it's also a B2B. So it's the helping side of the project, putting together the online and the offline. It's like helping people and helping company being more efficient. And at the beginning, the fact that we were showing prices and comparing them was really challenging, and we had all these grocery and retailers saying, "Oh, you're totally crazy in doing that. We're not going to help you. We're not going to give you any price feed or anything," because we were changing the way people were shopping. So that was another challenge, but very stimulating.
So we see it more like as a competitive advantage in a way that there are people who build stores and there are people who develop software, and we combine know-how from both areas. So we see it as an advantage, but I fully also would agree with Barbara. Like when Daniel and I founded the company, it was based on a personal experience. So I went shopping in Kaufhof and wanted to buy a pair of pants, and I had to try on 11 pairs of pants, and I thought this can't be the right way because I was on my own and always going in and out of the changing room. And this is how it started. It didn't start with what is the best business model to be easily scalable. Yeah. So and that's what we want to change, and whether it's difficult or not, we will see.
And how do you track that? Do you ask your customers how they experience the new changing room,
Yeah,
or
so that was exactly the idea of the test store that we had in Berlin at Rosenthaler Platz. We basically did an offline A/B testing. So in our store, you could shop in our concept changing room, but we also had 2 normal fitting rooms. And we were in the end able, I mean, one on the quantitative level to compare how long do people, what time do they spend in a fitting room, but also how many items do they actually buy. But of course also the qualitative assessment, just talking to the people, whether they liked it or not. And we got extremely positive feedback. Yeah, and that's of course motivating us now.
so, Philippa, you founded a startup called Wummelkiste that unfortunately went out of business recently, just as its competitor as well, and it was subscription-based. So many startups in the realm of commerce try this approach of a business model, and it doesn't work too amazingly. Why do you think is that?
I believe it's something that is very German as well, that nice German word Abo-Falle in comparison to subscription service. I believe there's some truth in the words.
Subscription trap.
Yeah, it's a trap instead of a service. And I think that kind of shows how people in Germany adapt themselves to subscriptions. I think there is a fair amount of subscriptions that really serve you with basic needs, something that you really need on a regular basis that totally works with a subscription.
Maybe like Pflegebox. Do you know that startup?
Yes, I do. But yeah, at least it's closer. I think that's also the new company where they sell diapers. I really do see that you don't want to go out and buy diapers every week. It's much more convenient to get it shipped at home. However, with products that are, let's say, nice to have, as it was with Wummelkiste, but you don't necessarily need to have it every month. It's very hard to sell a subscription. And what you see is that marketing costs just drive up like crazy. Product feedback always was very good, but it was very hard with a low margin to operate on just a shop basis, because we actually developed all the toys ourselves. So it was nothing that we bought, but we really had toy experts to develop everything our own. So the subscription kind of was a basic need in order to make baskets and customer lifetime value high enough to actually finance the lower margins with an own product. With Home, we did decide not to go into that subscription, since we see that when it comes to food we made a poll before we started the business, because, well, it came from the same experience. We liked Kochhaus, but that's basically like a supermarket that only has recipes on tables that you go and pick up. But we said somehow we never go there because it's too far, and then we just get one piece one meal that we can cook. And then we said, well, but we still like to cook, but we don't order HelloFresh. But why is that? And in the end, we realized that it is because we don't want to wait at home for the food to arrive, because that somehow, again, doesn't fit our schedule. Plus, we didn't want to be, all 3 of us said, but I don't want to be bound to cook at home 3 times in a row, because now I have that food that needs to be cooked. So we made that poll, and actually 70% of people said that they decide on what they eat on their way home. And that's it very much, well, it did help us to feel that we're going into the right direction, because it's very hard to decide on what you want to eat if you don't have a clue how to cook. Because then it actually consumes a lot of time to go and try to look out for recipes and go for food shopping, realize that a third of the products that you wanted to have aren't there anymore because they're sold out, go to the next supermarket. So that's basically how it all started. And we do see that moving from a subscription to a fully on-demand service, it has its downsides, since we need to know when people are more likely to order what kind of food. So the risk is a little higher when it comes to product costs. However, from a customer perspective, and we are amazed by how often people actually use our service, it's more often than we did expect it, because they have the freedom to do it whenever they like. And now it's our biggest challenge is to make sure that we attract from remarketing perspective, make sure that we understand the patterns behind rebuying, and make sure that we attract customers at the right point in time, and make them understand or make them remember that there is that option, home on their way home, and that's our biggest challenge right now.
Barbara, how would you say is the attitude towards subscription-based businesses in Italy?
it's still not that spread, so probably it's not yet perceived as a trap, which is good. So eventually...
But you have it with like telecommunication contracts and stuff.
Yes, but that's in the culture. So
Okay.
you have to subscribe to those things, otherwise you don't get, I don't know, electricity, water, and gas. So I thought like those services when you do a subscription with PayPal and then you forget and you don't use it and that's you're paying every month and then you realize after 10 months, oh, I paid for 10 months and never used the thing. So no, it's not that spread. So I think there is a good opportunity, for example, for grocery delivery on a subscription base. I talked to people and I had recently a new mother saying, oh, if I could get like milk every 2 days, or if I could get automatically every 3 days diapers, because I know that I run out of diapers every 3 days without even asking, that would be great. And so people really need to get things even without thinking about it, and you're helping their life and making it easier. So I think there is an opportunity there for delivery, or just subscribe to things you want every week to your door. So I think it's pretty open. It's an open market, and there is a big opportunity over there in Italy.
So Dorian, did you come across a business model recently that impressed you a lot?
Of course, home eat home. And
Thank you. I didn't pay him.
Do you use it?
is there anything you want to hear? Should I promote something?
No, with your opinion?
Well, I think as everyone, I like Airbnb. It's quite convincing, but that's not news to anyone, I think.
All right. Do we have time for questions from the audience? 2 minutes. Anyone? I don't see you.
No, actually, I don't see anything.
No hands.
Okay, if no one has questions, maybe everyone is still asleep. What do you guys think is the next big trend coming along?
That's a tough question. You should have asked us before to prepare.
I think
we need to say that it's online and offline combination, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's a panel,
Totally.
but that is kind of too obvious. So maybe you can come up with something different.
No, but I would agree. I mean, I'm of course looking from a fashion perspective, and there was this one disruption, everything moving online, and now we will see a second disruption in terms of digitalization becoming more and more important also in your offline shopping experience, and what way we will see. But I think that's going to be
And I think
a big
connected
change.
devices are going to be also something, because things just get smarter, and with smarter things around you, it's just easier to make your life smarter as well. And that's something where I believe we're just at the very beginning, and that's totally going to change.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Internet of Things is going to be the next offline online. You're basically making smart those things that are going to be used on your phone or wherever you are. So I think it's going to be big in the next few years. It will probably take 10 years to get somewhere and be in all our lives, because you have to change all of your appliances and plugs and things, and change your fridge, and this happens only on a few years basis. But it's going to be there in a little bit.
Okay, I think Internet of Things is a great transition, because that's what we're going to hear about next. So thank you, everyone, and thank you guys.
Thanks.